All right. What if I told you one small change on how you operate your MSP could change your life? You don't have to have a master's degree in finance or hire expensive professionals to grow your business. You'll learn today how the owner of an MSP, just like you, used his superpower to scale his business and exit in record time. Today, we got Myles Keough, founder of Spade Technology. Myles, welcome to the show.
Very excited to be here, Kevin. Very excited to be here.
Today, we get to talk about your journey, starting your MSP back in 2001, and we're going to go all the way through exit and transition in 2023. Talk about some of the key things that differentiated your business along the way. First and foremost, you as an operator and an owner of the business definitely differentiates yourself. But before we get too far down the line, let's talk about one key thing, and it's this thing that you and I always joke about, and it's your superpower. So what would you say your superpower is, Myles?
Yeah, it's pretty, people have said to me throughout the years, like, do you think it's, I was a little bit technical at the beginning and I was always kind of more sales oriented as an engineer. Like, is that maybe it, that technical, but you can speak to executives? Is it maybe your power persuasion, like helping you with that, with getting people on board or setting a vision? And I've realized over the years, my superpower is it's taken a long time to really develop and hone in on, but it's basic math and simple logic. With a smidge of belief,
A smidge of belief. You just got to sprinkle that in.
Yeah.
So basic math, consumer level math, and just some good logic is really what got you to where you're at.
Yeah, nothing beyond fourth grade math. You know what I mean? Like that's probably the...
So some basic addition, a little bit of division, some averages. That's all you need.
Maybe a percentage here or there. Maybe. You know what I mean? Like if we get a little crazy. Yeah.
Awesome. So looking back, why did you originally found Spade Technology?
I worked in the technology field for a while, worked for some bigger companies, some smaller companies. One of the last company I was at was a Microsoft consulting company. And I worked at small PE firms, as a consultant. And then I worked at huge banks and Motorola, like doing consulting and stuff like that. And I just always thought it was interesting that the bigger organizations were able to roll out technology at the same speed or faster than the smaller. And it just kind of fascinated me. And some of these small private equity companies had all the money in the world. They should just be able to do things quick, right? And what I realized is the bigger companies had a dedicated role, dedicated time, set process, and the smaller companies had a guy. Right. And so I kind of looked at it and said, hey, how can I take what I've learned here, dice it up and deliver it, make it consumable for small and medium business to be able to have that edge. I didn't really see it happening a lot elsewhere. And I felt it was something I could do.
Nice. So when you first started the MSP, was it just yourself in a consulting role? Did you have a couple of people that were along with you? What did that formation look like? And how did you get your first customers?
Yeah, so November 1st, 2001 is when I started the company. My title was CEO, which I thought was awesome.
Nice.
Because
I
could pick any title; they're all available. So it actually was funny when I started was right around that .com bomb. So unemployment IT was at an all-time high, and I was going to work. I had other job offers to work for bigger companies. And I thought like, this is the best time to take a risk because everyone's getting laid off from everywhere. Right. So it actually ended up being great because I could hire IT people 20 hours a week contract, which you could never be so hard to do, in a booming economy. Right. So I was able to
impossible today.
Yeah, exactly. So I was able to get people part-time. They'll take whatever they could get. And that's how we kind of built it up. I leveraged some relationships to get a couple of projects. And by like 2000, so we started 2001. By early 2003, we had our first version of our MSP offering. Long before I even knew how to spell MSP, I don't think it existed. And and it was a well-designed offering that was literally the opposite of the way to do things, like 100%.
So what do you mean by that? What did this offering look like?
All right, $25 a user for unlimited help desk. We did strategy and planning for you, help do like projects, stuff like that. We didn't do any monitoring. We didn't do any auditing. We didn't deploy best practices. We just said for $25 a month, we will take on all of the crap that's going to happen in your environment, and we're going to do nothing to reduce the noise or reduce the risk. So we just took all of our
what could go wrong with that?
Yeah, exactly. We just said to our client, it was an easy sales process. Like, we're going to take all of your liability, and for $25 a user, we're going to take on all the liability. Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah. So it was, and we did it backwards. We did a network assessment. We quoted the projects that they wanted, they originally talked to us about. And we said, we can get all this done and get your environment cleaned up for whatever, 150 grand. However, if you sign up for your long managed services agreement,
right?
We didn't call it that, but we called it our crappy support offering.
Yeah.
Then we will reduce the project. I think the engineer rate was like $175 an hour. We drop it to $125.
Nice.
So we would make less money on you and take on all your liability for only $25 a user a month. Is it good?
That's perfect. Well, I mean, one of the magic things that you were doing in there, probably unbeknownst to you, was you were cleaning up the environment. You were limiting some of your exposure and liability by taking care of some of the low hanging fruit. But $25 a head for an all you can eat help desk model doesn't sound like a business that was scalable.
Even back then.
Besides pricing, what other challenges did you face early on?
Yeah, we got, like a lot of MSPs, I think, we get suckered into tools are going to fix everything. We built our own support desk tool. It's a cool concept. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a system where you track ticketing and you can enter your time on the tickets, and it would sync with our QuickBooks, and it did all this stuff. It was awesome. When we built it, we had some app dev guys on our team. We called it SupportWorks with an E, right? And that was our ticketing system we rolled out to all of our clients. I think we had like 10 of them at the time. And like, we were so psyched, spent a year and a half building it. And then I got a call from this company in Florida called ConnectWise.
Never heard of them.
2004. And they were like, oh, have you seen our way bigger, better version of what you just spent all that time building? So, it's, I always joke around and say, like, I say it kiddingly, but I think it's true. Like, the recipe for success is dynamic. The recipe for failure is pretty static. So if you can find all the things that don't work, it's almost as valuable as knowing what does work, right?
So I think you're giving a little foreshadow to what's next. You and I have had plenty of conversations around this. And one thing missing in the industry is a very long list of all the things that we have tried as MSP owners that didn't work. So.
Yeah. So for every MSP owner that says, I got an idea, we can be like,
you got to run it through the filter. Nope, we did that back 2020. Didn't work. Here's what happened. This is how much it cost us.
Yeah. Expensive lessons. But yeah, I mean, so it was a lot of that. It was similar to today, like, getting and finding the right people, finding ways to, I think when we first started, it was like, how can I compensate them to make employee retention better? And, what we always often figured out down the road, right, is compensation is part of it. Compensation has to be fair enough that it's not an issue, but people stay in their jobs because they're not stressed out. They're not constantly giving up their weekends or nights to jump in and fix problems. They feel like they're making a difference. The customers like us and like them. Like, that's why people, so, at the beginning, you're kind of bringing people in and you're just trying to win people over with money. You don't know any better.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So one of the key things that you said in there, and I think all of us as owners of MSPs can relate to it, is those nights and the weekends, those, emergency calls that are going off. I shared a story with Trent Peters on my honeymoon night. Data center was down, Linux farm. I was the only person that knew Linux. So, on my wedding night, after the ceremony, guess what I got to do? Go into the business center and get a data center back up online. You looked at this a little bit differently and you approached it differently in your MSP. Share with everybody on kind of what your thoughts were around, calming down that noise, and how are you able to achieve something that many MSPs think is just absolutely impossible?
Yeah, we started in 2006. We created So basically, it was kind of funny the way we evolved. When we started with, and I don't even know if you and I ever even talked about this. We've had a lot of conversations over the years, but that that initial way that we did things, we did a project first, and
Mhm.
then onboarded them. So yes, you're right. We did fix a lot of things. Like for example, every one of our clients, server one was their file server in DC, the name. Server two was their Exchange server. Server three was their RDP server. Every single one of them, server one was 10.11.11, server two was 10.11.12, right? The exact same Extreme Network switches. We had matching purple cables in the pat, like everything was perfect, right?
Right.
It worked great, and the concept was there. The only problem is, no way in a million years are you going to have fast growth that way. Like it was just too
Yeah.
hard, right? You had to build brand new environments for every client in order to support them. But there was a little hidden gem in there in that we gained great efficiency because every time we had a new consultant come on board, we had to teach them one set of standards. Every time someone picked up the phone for a help desk for a new client, they knew like, oh, I already know. I can look at the network. I know what's what, right? It was almost like learning a language.
Yeah.
And that kind of became part of our secret sauce as we looked and said, hey, how can we do this across companies that have one has an HP server, one has a Dell server, one has this, one has that, right? And
Hmm.
we started creating these spreadsheets and putting all these standards and best practices together. I know we had so many spreadsheets, but we had these steps. So every client had their standards folder, and in there were these audit questions that we went through over and over again. And we had a little drop down in one of the fields that was a picture of like a green check, a bomb, like all this stuff, right?
Yep.
Most people watching this know there's tools that do that now. We had spreadsheets.
We
Right?
did. We had Excel.
Yeah. And then what you did is that every month you ran those audits, you just saved another copy of it, right? So if someone said, oh, can you show us what the trend has been around this or how has this improved? We're like, yeah, that's fine. Let me just open 12 spreadsheets and analyze what's happened every month over 12 months, right? So, but there was a little secret sauce in there that we were able to figure out. Like we need to charge enough to our clients. Like it's hard to sell a client on, hey, we need you to pay us X dollars an hour per month to do documentation. So we realize like we have to phrase it a different way. So we say, hey, part of managing your infrastructure is we're auditing, deploying our standards, blah, blah, blah. And we did this early on, right? Not 100% perfect, but still better than most. And that was our, hey, we're going to audit, we're going to do this stuff. And that's part of our monthly fee. And we just kind of blended it in because before everything was itemized, right? And they could just pick it apart. I don't want that. I don't want broccoli with my beef and broccoli. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yeah, that's not an option. Like that's it. It's beef and broccoli. That's what you're getting. Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're getting dinner, right?
yeah, yeah. So we went through and kind of, figured out how to do that with our clients, reduce noise, get things a little quieter, and the side effect that we weren't even smart enough to track yet was things around tickets per end user, reactive hours per end user, kind of all that stuff. The only thing we could really see right away is, man, like our clients like our support desk. Like nobody likes their help desk. You know what I mean? Like, why do they like ours? Like, oh, because they can actually help them. So a little bit of a light bulb went off at that point.
Nice. So how did you ultimately decide to scale that model, right? So you started, like most of us did, traditional IT services. You figured out how to sell subscriptions, $25 unlimited help desk. You realized that, hey, if I devoted 8 hours or 10 hours a month to each one of my clients, I can implement some standards and some best practices. Ultimately, that's what calmed down the noise and made your staff happy, where they're not taking those calls on the weekend. What decisions did you make that enabled you to take it from a small but a mighty MSP delivering great results to your clients to ultimately where you were prior to exit?
So we were set up kind of two parts to this answer. So we were kind of set up to do it because we already, even though we broke out by component, what we did, we charged $25 per user for the support desk piece, unlimited. We also built in, I think it was 8 hours a month of strategic advisor time at a higher bill rate.
Wow. Nice.
And then we built in, depending on the clients, typical 100-person company, we would do like 1 day a week, and then we eventually got down to 1 day every other week on site of an engineer on site. And so what we started doing is that engineer on site, because they were fixed costs built in, we started converting that engineer on site from doing reactive stuff on site to throwing that over the wall of the support desk, and they started implementing some of our standards and best practices. So
nice.
we didn't really have to resell our clients.
Yeah.
We just had to kind of behind the scenes change what people did. As far as this, the approach to scale it, I tell people this all the time. Like when you go down and you register to start, and I say go down, I know we do it online, but you know what I mean? When you go down, you go to register to start a business, they should just hand you a piece of paper that just says it's all about sales. Like, because every business owner, no business owner, I shouldn't say that. Most business owners don't get into, I want to start a business to do sales, right?
So, yeah. Sales is the best. We all love it, right?
Yeah,
Pick up the phone, call people that want to talk to you, book appointments.
Awesome. Yeah.
I mean, every one of these CEOs that are our target client, they're just waiting for somebody to call them that day and try and sell some IT service.
They are so excited when we call. And my favorite is when you drive into traffic for like 2.5 hours in the morning and there's an accident, you get in there and you park in the garage and you walk through the rain 3 blocks and you go in and the receptionist's like, oh no, he's off today. You're like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is why I started a company, right? So, it really is. It's about, if you don't have a great sales machine, you have an awesome service nobody knows about. And I think the one thing with our industry, and it's true for some industries, but I know for us, we're selling a solution to a problem people don't know they have.
Exactly.
So when we're talking to them, they're like, yeah, no, we're good. We got, and I'm like, I have a CPA I work with. I have a law firm I work with, right? Whatever. Like, I think they're great, but I'm not qualified to make that decision. You know what I mean? Like they do what I need them to do, whatever, like.
Yeah. Anytime there's an issue, you pick up the phone, your staff picks up the phone, they remote in and they fix the problem.
Yeah. And, what could be better? Well, someone could do it for cheaper, But then I would be like, if they're doing it for cheaper, are they doing a good job? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I look at attorneys and it's almost like, and this is, this will probably get me a bunch of soliciting calls from law firms, but I almost feel like the more they charge me, like the more comfortable. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Oh, you're $1,400 an hour? Oh, the other guy was $1,000. I'm going with you.
I'm going with you.
Yeah. So, but for us, it's just, it's kind of similar to that. Like they don't know. So it's our sales. We have to create the demand. We have to get prospects we have to create their need. And then later down the road, we can prove to them that we have the solution for their need. But the bulk of our sales process is around creating that need. And you really have to be talking to, under 100 users, under 150 users. You really be talking to the CEO, owner, maybe CEO, maybe CFO, COO. But it's tough to get in front of them and have those conversations. And in order to do it, you need to put a lot of effort in, right?
And I think one of your, strengths, right? We'll kind of come back to your superpower. Yeah. The superpower being basic math, simple logic, and a smidge or a sprinkle of belief, right? Yeah. How does that transfer into the sales process for you?
I mean, that's a lot of what we're doing with prospects, right? So when we meet with them, basic math's a perfect example. Like when you're talking to them, you're like, hey, how often are you guys, how often are you have like, let's say it's a company where everything's flowing through one person, right? Like, okay, well, how often is that person calling your MSP? I have no idea. I mean, during the day, 2 times, 3 times, probably 3 times a day. It's like, all right. So you just kind of walk them through it. You're like, so about 15 calls a week. So about 60 calls a month. That seem right? Yeah, it seems right. But you have 25 employees, right? Like that's.
Yeah. No, I mean, that seems fine, right?
Yeah, that's more than 2. So, and maybe that is. But let's say you could cut that down. Let's say every call takes an hour, right? So let's say you could cut that time in half. What if you could cut it down, take 75% off? And by the way, not just that, but while you're doing that, you're also reducing your cyber risk. You're also having more control over your IT spend. If you add all that up, I'm not saying we can do this, but we can talk about that later. But let's say we could. Right. what does that mean to your business? And then at the end of that conversation, when you're having when you're getting to the final kind of parts of the conversation, they're telling you, hey, you're going to be $2,000 more a month. It's like, really, bro? We just talked about all that money you're losing every week with
Yep.
your team, loss of billable hours, wasted payroll, risk, and we're really going to talk about $2,000 a month.
Yeah, and that really hits home when you're in a professional services engagement, like with a client that's high billable utilization, law firms, CPAs. All they're looking at is billable time of all of their billable staff, and now Myles comes along with Spade, and his package that he has for IT based off of simple math and basic logic, and says, all right, well, we're going to create 75% more efficiency. What can you guys do with that?
Yeah. And you know what we don't talk about? We don't talk about EDR. We don't talk about sock and seam. Like, you know what I mean? That might come in down the road once they're like they said, we're the guys and we're moving forward.
Yeah.
But like none of that stuff comes up. We don't talk about our patching process, how many certifications our engineers have. And to the point when I first started, like they didn't know that I was the only full-time employee in the company. Like we worked with some big names and they had no idea. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I would have my girlfriend at the time, like she did some of the recordings for voicemails in the office. You know what I mean? To like, so it wasn't my voice for every single prompt. You know what I mean? Like we changed a little higher, a little lower with this one. So, but it's again because it has nothing to do with that stuff. It has to do with process, right? Like I think we have great people. I always felt like we had such an awesome team, especially last couple of years. Like we had a rock star group of people.
Yeah, but when you're competing with other mature MSPs, and back when you and I founded these organizations, you in 2001, I think I was a year behind you in 2002. Like that's what we led with. We led with great people, great teams. They care about you. They care about your results. And then all these software vendors came along, and then all of a sudden we had this great technology. So it was really about, our great people in this piece of technology that nobody else has, right?
Except for the other 2,000 MSPs that they sell their tool to. Yeah.
Yeah. You fast forward to 2025, and it sounds like you've got, again, using your simple logic, you've got it baked down to three things, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, people, again, I think we have great people, but I'm sure every other MSP thinks they have great people.
Yeah.
The tools, yeah. I mean, I think we do a lot to invest in our tools, make sure they're set up right, documented right, et cetera. However, I do know in a crazy effort to be profitable, those software companies sell their tool to other MSPs besides us.
Crazy.
Nuts, right? So they all have access to it. So what is it? It's our process. I mean, that's ultimately what, great chef. There's a bunch of great chefs in the world, right?
Yeah.
They all have good,
all using same ingredients, right?
Same ingredients they have access to, but some places are just consistently awesome.
Nice. Right? Now, speaking of awesome, I'd love to say that you were just brilliant. Used your consumer math, you figured all this out. But I know a large part of this success and this growth and this change in your mindset was attributed to a special group, right? A group that was special to you, one that was special to me. And that's, really where peer comes in. You want to talk about how you got involved with peer? When did that start, and really what kind of change that made for you?
Yeah, I'll go back even a little before peer. So I bumped into Gary Pica from True Methods at a conference. We were in lunch line, going to lunch line. He was a couple people behind me. So I'm like, I let the people behind me. He spoke briefly. This is still, this is well before True Methods. He was still working for the company that bought him out. And so they all kind of go through the lunch line, whatever. And I let people cut me. And I said, hey, introduce myself. I'm like, look, like, dude, I totally relate with where you were. Like he was in the spot. We were just starting to kind of catch up. Like he was talking about his best practices. We already were doing that, right? It was kind of like, and I don't know anyone else that was doing that kind of stuff. So I'm like, this is really cool. So I said, hey, I want to hire you. I know you're done, in a month or so. I want to hire you. And he said, yeah, I'm going to take some time, and in about a year, I'm going to start up a business, kind of consult, help MSPs sell, and that kind of thing. And I said, that's awesome, but you didn't hear anything that I said. I don't want to wait. I want to speed up my process. I want to hire you now, right? So I got to work with Gary one-on-one pre-True Methods as he was kind of figuring it out. There are definitely some things I think he talking about, like, failing fast and learning what doesn't work. Yeah, I get to be the little guinea pig for True Methods, which was fun, So, but going through that process with him, which, by the way, if you've ever not many people had the pleasure of doing a weekly sales call with him. Like, I know a lot of the peer accountability groups have those calls. It's slightly different when it's one-on-one with Gary than it is with your group. So, to the point of, like, I'm with my inside sales guy, and he's like, yeah, you're forbidden to talk to me about that company anymore. This is a prospect. I'm like, what? It's forbidden. I don't want to hear about them anymore. Are we done here? I'm like, yeah, we get off the call. My inside sales guy looks at me. He's like, you pay him, right? I'm like, yeah. So, interesting little experience, but that got into, the True Methods peer group. So I was in, the very beginning, the first meeting. And I'm going to start off by saying, if anybody watching this is not in a peer group, no matter which peer group, right? If you're not in a peer group, you are taking years off your life, and you're adding years to your journey in a bad way.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it is Napoleon Hill, the mastermind group. It's the same concept, right? It's like multiple brains solving the same problem, get there faster. It's just fact.
Absolutely. Yep.
So first peer group we did, True Methods was in it, still in today. Some of very close friends of mine. I went through a lot of experiences and journeys, like we all did together. But it was really, it was as much as it was great from a learning perspective, the other piece that I didn't realize I was going to get out of it is, like, I remember coming back from the first meeting and I felt like this weight was lifted off my chest. It was like going to a therapist. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, especially, I'd say, we were solo business owners, right? So even with partners, you only have one person to talk to, but man, like, I would always say, I can't stand in front of my employees and be like, shit, if we lose this client, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll, right? Like, those aren't conversations you can have with your team, but in that room with those people, you can, and they're not going to judge you. They're going to try to help you out, and they're going to do whatever they can to help kind of guide you and get you through that.
Really the power of that group is, you got 8, 9, 10 other people, that are looking at your situation or issue or problem from 10 different perspectives. And one of the great things about the group, even if you ran into a situation that nobody had covered before, everybody kind of bands together and helps you get through it. But the reality is, like, 90% of the problems you run into, somebody else inside of that group, they've had that same exact problem.
100%.
Right. And you get to look at the way they solved it and the results of what they implemented. And you can look at this and figure out, hey, is this going to be a good direction for me and my organization? Outside of that, I think one of the true powers of peer is accountability, right? We as the CEO, we didn't have anybody that was really holding our feet to the fire, making sure that our numbers were improving, holding us accountable to certain results and certain promises that we had. Now, how did you take that accountability that you learned inside of peer and then implement it inside of your business?
So I'll tell you who does a great job with that is we had ways that we did it, and with dashboards, and really a lot of it was about setting expectations for the team. Tony Williams does an awesome job with that, with doing the consulting for operations. And just kind of showing you his dashboard and stuff like that. Like, that was there were certain moments that were little game changers. But that was a great one. And
yeah, Tony Williams, his boot camp was so good. We did it twice.
Yeah, everybody does it twice. It's because the first time you do it, you go through, what usually happens a lot of times, people do it the first time with their COO. And then the second time they do it with a good COO.
Exactly.
Because you realize, like, oh, it's not the process that's the problem.
Yes.
So But yeah, that was really helpful for us. I mean, a lot of it to us came down to, again, had to lean on my superpower there, right? Um, basic math. But a lot of it was just, we talk about all the time with like our support desk, like going in and being like,
Hmm.
guys, industry leaders, 10, 12 tickets a day average per engineer. So
Closed tickets, right?
yeah, and it's like, and so could be a couple things. One, and by the way, these are all companies that work with the exact same type of clients that we do. They have the same tools, same everything else. So it's not that. So it's either a couple things, either A, maybe our team's just not that good, or B, maybe we can close more tickets and we're just not doing it because it's not the expectation, right? So part of what we did there is just say, look, this is the number, this is our bogey, this is where we're going to hit, and this is what great looks like. And there's upside to everybody when you hit it, and there's people have to work harder when we're not hitting it, right? And
Yeah.
we went from averaging 140 tickets open on our board every day to 25.
Yeah.
And all we did was change
And
expectations and hold people accountable.
change expectations, but it's also that smidge of belief, right? You're sitting inside a peer, you've got 9 other companies that are working on the same things, reporting their operations numbers, and they're able to average, above 10 tickets closed per day per support desk rep, right? As soon as you see it is actually possible, it changes.
Huge difference. And what we used to do is I would take our reports and graphs and I'd blank out the company's names because I don't think it was fair to like share that, right? But
Yeah.
I would share it. And from anyone on my team who watches this, little confession, we blew away a lot of people in numbers, but I would never
Yeah.
show them those. I always picked the ones that we were a little weak on. And
Hmm.
I'm like, hey, look at almost everyone in our group is doing better. And this number is, whatever it's supposed to be, higher or lower, right? Than us in a
Right.
good way. And, what do we have to change to get as good as them on this, right? So that was, for my team, kind of the belief, same thing, because they took pride in who they are and how good they are at what they do. And they looked at it as almost a challenge, like, wait a minute, we're where? No, that can't be
Yeah.
right. I'm like, yeah, no, this is what it is. So
Yeah, every single quarter we were showing up, and every one of our teams was individually graded and compared against other people inside of the peer group, and obviously the company overall. Um, you know, peer, huge part for you, a huge part for myself as well. We had fortunate to meet and become really good friends with some fantastic people. You mentioned Gary Pica, hands down, number one guy that I attribute most of my success in life to. Tony Williams, I've seen him come in and change so many people's operations and expectations. When did you know that your organization was at that point in life where you wanted to decide, hey, maybe I should take this to market, or maybe I should start exploring? Because as an owner of a successful MSP, just like the CEOs that were inundated with phone calls from your inside sales team,
yeah,
we get a lot of emails and we get a lot of interest, right? But how did you know it was time for you to take a look at the market?
yeah. So I did a couple things. One, I it was actually when I was working with Gary at one point. I had one company, man, 2012, I think. So not that far in my journey that was really kind of on me about doing something. And Gary was one of the suggestions, like, hey, have an initial conversation with them, go through, see how they look at your company, right? Because a lot of it's perspective. You want to see how people view you, the value of your company, how they would value it, et cetera. And so once every few years, I would take one of those calls, and didn't really, unless someone blew me away, I wasn't going to do anything. But it was more I wanted to get education, right? On like, what do they look at? What do they value? What do they not value, et cetera. Um, I knew I had to build. I knew I had to build a team, a management team, so that if I stepped away, the company would still be worth something. So I brought a management team in. Had a tough time running a management team, like this running at issues. I'm not even a management team, like a real leadership team, like a COO, a head of HR, head of finance, et cetera, so that they could actually run the team without me being involved in day to day. And took a few tries at each role, finally got the right people, built an awesome team there. Got the help from Doug Diamond, who's awesome. Originally he was kind of doing the Gazelles format, and then he kind of modified it, and but worked with him. That was really helpful. Another kind of big pivotal point. And then once I got that going, I'm like, hey, I really need to I could always just drum up sales when I needed it. Like I needed just to be able to consistently show sales. So worked on inside sales, got that going. Jim Mullen, who's a great inside sales, inside and outside, but it's really where we kind of leverage the
Yep.
inside sales. Kind of, it's funny. He didn't even want. I kind of convinced him to do this program, which he now has now. But I'm like, I just want to give you money, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The early days of Jim, he was just kind of hanging around Pierre, and we had conversations with him, and we realized what a rock star from the sales standpoint he was.
Yeah.
But I
awesome.
didn't know it took you convincing him, hey, maybe you should put together a little program.
I'm like, he's like, yeah, I don't know if they want to do it. I'm like, wait, what do I think? He's like, talk to Gary. So I go to Gary. I'm like, Gary, can we please give you more money? Like, it's all we want to do. Like, so, and I get it. They didn't want it to be, like, it goes back to the accountability. They didn't want it to be, Jim's job is not to hold your sales team accountable. It's to give them the skills and some perspective and training, right? Beyond what they get from any other type of sales training. So, but that was really good getting that sales predictable going. And then, at that point, it was a matter of looking at, we talked to a few different companies. I wasn't in a rush, but I knew I went through 2 points in my life. Both just before I started Spade, where one, I had a lot of stock in a company that was on the NASDAQ, and I was about a month from being able to cash in a significant amount of it, like life-changing amount at like 27 years old. And the beginning of the dot bomb happened, and we got delisted. And then I had another one where we were an e-solutions company. We worked for all the .com companies, and we had a big company, a big recognizable name, throw out a dollar amount to us in a meeting. They wanted to buy us, and everyone's kind of laughed. We thought they were kidding. Like, no way would we sell for that little. And then we did a soft shutdown of that company right after 9/11. So, so I'm like, all right, I understand there's highs and lows here in the market. You know what I mean? So
and there's a time for opportunity, and sometimes you're swinging and you're missing, right?
Yeah. So for this one, I'm like, I just want to make sure I was aware of what's going on in the market. Talked to a few, and then ultimately just got to the point where it just kind of made sense. Like, I felt like my goal was to build. A couple of people that sold their companies in other industries told me this, like, if you really want to get peak value for your company, get it to the point that you don't want to give it up, right? Where it's just spitting out profit, it's running efficiently, it's just cranking along, because A, that's when someone's going to want it the most, and B, it puts you in a good spot because you're not like dying to get rid of it.
Yeah, if you keep it, you still have this phenomenal business that's just stacking cash and throwing it to the bottom line, right? Like, what better position to be in?
Yeah, and like, so many people try to build their company, like, I'm going to build this and sell it. It's like, no, build an awesome company that you would keep. You'll get that's when you're in a good position. That's when you're going to maximize your return.
Now, looking at that point, you said that you were talking with a couple of different companies. The end of this movie is IT Solutions acquired, Spade Technology, October 31st, 2023.
Yep.
What criteria did you use? How did you know ITS was the right organization, for you to kind of unleash the reins to?
Yeah, we had, at the time, we had 2 others that we were talking to. We didn't get that far down the road with them. We went a month before we got to the point of an LOI that came out, a letter of intent that came out. We never really got that far down the road. And so ITS is a few things. One, a big selling feature, the board of advisors and the private equity firm behind them. So I have a funny kind of little history with Nautic. I worked as a consultant at Nautic Partners the 2 years before I started Spade. But that was a consulting company, so it's a little weird that it like circles back. In fact, I bought my domain name SpadeTechnology.com when I was at lunch, on lunch break at that gig. So,
at Nautic, that's crazy.
So here's a little circle, but I knew they were good. I knew the way they operated. Right, they invested and they did very well in their investments. They hit out of the park a lot, and they weren't. They didn't tend to go in and kind of rip companies apart. Like, they were looking at growth. I was, you obviously want to maximize your return, right? But I have some people that worked for me for 14, 15 years,
Absolutely. You
Um,
want to make sure that they're taken care of, right?
yeah, and same with clients. I have clients. I have some clients that are I go golfing with all the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're good friends of mine, right? And so I want to make sure that I'm not screwing them over in the process. And
Yeah.
I don't know what else I'm gonna do. So to me, it was kind of like I don't want to ruin my brand, my personal brand. Like I did most of these sales. I committed. I made promises to these. That's what a sale is, right? You're making a promise to someone. So ITS had a great. I felt like their model was very similar, and they were trying to do similar to what we were doing, right? Being proactive, big focus on that strategy planning. You know, really helping those companies out. Security, right? That was a big thing. Like we were all of us, right? Individually, were building our own security practices. It's a like that's the first time that I felt that the size of the organization is a huge advantage because before then nothing else we could go against bigger MSPs and do better, but it's like
Hmm.
man, you really there's a lot you have to put behind security, a lot.
Yeah, from a security standpoint, having the right people in security leadership, understanding the right frameworks to implement, what implementing those frameworks the correct way, what does that look like? What, we don't like to talk about tools, but there's a lot of selection. There's stuff that's going to reduce your risk in there. And, for me, when I was going through that journey, I think probably one of the biggest, factors for me in making that decision to transact was just that fear around, a cyber event for us as an owner of an MSP, right? You get one bad click or one bad, um, support desk rep leaves a password in a notepad on a personal computer, and that gets breached, and you're done for, right?
We know people that happened to, right,
Yeah.
where 90% of their clients got encrypted through their RMM, right, or not as bad but still painful. We know people who their RMM got compromised, they had to shut it down for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you tell a client, all your clients, not a client, all your clients for
Yeah.
2 weeks, yeah,
Every one of them.
we can't do anything for you right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We're
So
going back to old school. We're rolling trucks.
yeah, exactly, right? Like it's hard, right? So I mean, yeah, so there's a lot of risk there. So I felt like the size was helpful, especially on the security practice. We did a lot on the security side, as I know you did as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked a lot of DoD clients and SEC. We built a lot of the framework. They looked at it as, hey, we want to take what you guys are already doing and make it better, right? Improve it. And everyone was kind of in line from that perspective. I liked the other MSPs they were targeting, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of
Huge.
funny, but it made a difference that like, okay, good. If these are the kind of companies you're looking for to grow, because like if they said the next company we bring in after you is going to be a 200-person remote support desk, I'd be like, man, do I want my clients and employees mixed in the mud with,
Yeah. Calling into some, remote support farm that's
oh,
offshored somewhere. And yeah.
yeah, right? Like horrible. So those were all little things like to me were like, okay, yeah, this definitely makes sense. For most MSPs, you're betting a little bit on the success of the group as a whole. So when you think like, oh, why does it really matter who the private equity is? Why does it matter who the board of advisors are? You know, because you're betting a little bit on that. Like it's just like if you're investing in a stock, you would go online and be like, hey, who's behind this? You know what I mean? You want to know a little bit about it. It's the same thing, right? You want to make sure that, but you're investing, possibly any role. You're investing your employees' future. You're investing your client's future. You're investing your brand, your own personal brand. Like all of that is getting invested in that company that's acquiring you. It's a little
Yeah.
nerve wracking.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
It's a little bit more than just, hey, here's the value of the organization, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, you talked about the role for the employees post transaction, post exit. What did you see inside of your staff? What kind of opportunities were created? And, you
Yeah.
fast forward, it's been like 14 months now. Where's
Yeah.
everybody at?
Yeah. No, it was, then that was another big feature. And because I wanted to be able to go to my team, obviously I was excited, you know what I mean? Years of building this, right? But I wanted them to be excited, and I wanted them to have opportunities that we always built. We would share once a year what we were going to look like when we were 10 times bigger, right? So we always had our org chart, and then we had the org chart of what we're going to be. We're 10 times bigger. And I'd
Yeah,
show them
clever.
all the different roles. Like, hey, we're going to have dedicated security engineers doing these roles. And we're going to have multiple support desk leaders and multiple project managers and like all this stuff, right? So how I kind of told them was, I'm like, hey, good news, we achieved it.
This isn't 10 years out anymore.
Yeah,
This is actually today.
this is now. Like officially as of today, we've achieved it. But that's how I kind of framed it to them. Like, look at all these opportunities they're going to be because they're growing. ITS is growing. We're always, as we get bigger and bigger, new positions are open up that we need talented people for. So, you know, the acquisition from ITS's perspective was, yes, they get the business, our process, our clients, all that kind of stuff. But they also get an awesome team of people that are very good at what they do. And, we've had multiple people go from a regional role to now, run their heads in professional services, their heads of multi-region support desk, taking on from a strategic advisor perspective, clients across the country. Like we're seeing more and more of our team get promoted, which to me is a testament to two things. It's a testament to one, our team, and how great our people are, and two, to ITS recognizing those opportunities, right, and being like, hey, this is how we can make us all better. It's by taking these people and putting them in these roles.
That's awesome. It's you kind of sit back, you look at this decision that you made, again, like it's been 14, 15 months for you. And some of that decision that you made was just really on blind faith and hoping that it was really going to turn out for the best for everybody. But now it sounds like you're pretty confident this was a great decision, not only for you and your family, but also for everybody that was a part of Spade to begin with. Looking at post-exit, what's your life like now? Like, from a personal standpoint and a professional standpoint,
Yeah.
what's Myles up to? And you're always smiling. You've always been a happy guy.
Yeah.
But
it's
what are you doing now?
There's some stuff that you expect and other stuff that totally surprises you, right? Again, I've had some friends in this industry and in others that have sold their businesses, and they all kind of say the same thing. Like, yeah, you think that money is the goal, but when you have something like this happen, like, now what?
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, this thing that you've been chasing, like your purpose is checked. Kind of what's the next thing?
Financial freedom,
yeah.
check.
Yeah, like so it's just a weird, it's you don't expect that. Like you don't expect that to be the problem, right? And although I think it was Biggie that said more money, more problems. But yeah. No, but what ends up happening is you're just finding that new purpose, right? And for me, like I had things that I want to do at ITS. I want to help us. I want to continue to help ITS be awesome. And I think there's areas that we can do that. I think we can do some really cool stuff that hasn't been done in the industry at scale. I think we have the right people, the right process, et cetera, to be able to do that. Some of the things that, that you don't think about. So the good, I'll give you the good. And I remember at one point they're like, hey, listen, during the transition, like, hey, we want to, as quickly as we can, we want to take finance and HR off of your plate. And I was like, oh no, please don't do that. Like again,
I love everybody coming to me with all the HR problems every day.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, as a business owner, it's like, the things that you wanted to do when you started a business, I would put it in the category of like HR, sales, finance. Like those are the three that I'd be like, those are the most stressful as a business owner, right? And so there was some nice part there, like some of that stress goes away, some of that worry goes away. Felt like a piano was lifted off my back. The worry of a cyber attack, the worry of like all this stuff. Like there's still some risk in your life, but it's dramatically different, right?
Yeah, I think I'd like to share. One of our other coaches and mentors along the way from True Methods, Peter Bryden, right? Like he's had a phenomenal impact on your life. I know for me personally, Peter's just been a rock. One of the books that he recommended to me, I want to say 30 days ago, last time I saw him out in Orlando, was this book called Factory for Good. And it really talks about the stages that you go through post-transaction, post-exit. And the big piece in all of this is reconnecting with what's your purpose. purpose, right? Our purpose has always been these businesses that we're building, not only for the business, but for all of the employees that are there. And as soon as that transaction happens, that purpose needs to be, it needs to be filled again. So good recommendation from Peter. I don't know if you've read that yet yourself, Myles, but Factory for Good by Alex Bean. Probably one of the best books I've read in a while.
Nice. No, I'll definitely add that to the list. Peter's always good for a good book. Back in the day when he was pushing the effective executive. Remember that one? So
yeah.
Another great book, by the way. Your purpose needs to be either recreated or modified, right? And as business owners, especially MSP business owners, we're 24/7 working, right? Like, I mean, we're not, but we are, right? Like, to your point, I mean, the amount of vacations I've been on and with my family, and I'm like, oh, I'll be down on the beach. You guys go, I'll be there an hour. I just got to do one thing, right? And it's like, but that's all the time, right? It's not, we don't turn off at 5 o'clock. So the business really becomes part of who we are as a person. And yeah, post transaction, it changes, and you got to figure out what does that look like, right? Yeah, it's different, and it's, we used to before be able to say this is because I say it is, and now all of a sudden, right? And now all of a sudden it's like this is. Let me give you all the evidence on why this is. And you can tell me if you believe me or not. We can talk about it for a little while, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A little different.
That was a huge change. Yeah. 14, 15 months. Is there anything that you would have done different, looking back at your MSP and your journey?
Yeah, I would have. So I had these dreams of scaling and growing, like of this massive company, right? I said this to someone that I was helping out that's running an MSP. They were talking about how they hired like 3 different inside salespeople, and it went for a while and didn't work out, whatever. And they're like, it's just too hard, so I'm not going to do it. And my response was, I'm not trying to be rude, but just being me. My response was, I think it was something to the effect of like, dude, I didn't tell you to start an MSP, right? Like, I know it's hard. Like, that's running an MSP. That's where you have to be good at hiring, training, firing salespeople, right? The ones that aren't performing, and hiring more. It's like, that's what has to happen. So, if I could go back in time, if I was starting an MSP today, I would probably have myself be the VCIO. I'd get one other engineer that could do like reactive work and some proactive stuff. I know I don't like to mix reactive and proactive, but to start, let them kind of do both. And then I'd hire probably 2 ISRs and an outside person.
Nice. So going for distribution, sales first, and then you'll figure out operations and delivery second.
Yeah, because it's that stuff. There's enough out there. I mean, I hate to sound like the, I walked 5 miles to school uphill both ways kind of guy, but we were figuring it out, right? Like, it's all out there now. Like, you can get, we had to deploy tools. We had to spend $100,000 investment to deploy an RMM, right? Now you can get 6 months for free if you sign up for 3 years. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, absolutely. And no minimums. Like, here you go. I need 20 licenses.
Yeah. Right. And like, we look at our best practices. Again, we were doing spreadsheets, but now there's tools that do that stuff. Right. And like,
not only are there tools that do that, but they've already figured it out. Those tools contain all the best practices you should do.
Yeah, exactly. Sign up for my IT process, download them, put them in, boom, there you go. By the way,
just do this.
Half of them are probably ours that we developed over 20 years, probably. Right? So you're welcome, everybody. So no, but like, so that stuff, it comes down to that sales piece, like really. And we've talked a lot about sales. We haven't talked about marketing. Definitely room for marketing. It's important. I know I call it a necessary evil. I know it's not evil, but sales to me is math and science a lot more than marketing is. So I lean towards sales more, but having that sales engine that's going constantly, like, that's how you're going to build inertia. And I think I could do tomorrow if I wanted to. I think I could build, we joke around, I call it diamond technology, right? From Spade Technology. I think I could build diamond technology and get it to where Spade was in about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, Absolutely. Hands down. I know you can do it, especially with just putting the right things first, which is sales.
Yep. 100%.
Myles, listen, I appreciate you coming on here today, sharing your wisdom. The degree in finance from running your MSP boils down to just really two things: basic math, simple logic, and just a
Smidge of belief.
little smidge of belief.
Two and a half things. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Myles. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, Kevin. Pleasure.